We built a creative in August 22. So it's been 2 years and a half now. And that creative and its direct variations, meaning when we swap out the same creative, but we swap out the hook, or the same creative and we swap out the AI actor, that creative still remains the top spender for us. And we spend about $400 a month.
How good is AI-generated UGC today? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name is John Koetsier. This is the podcast for growth marketers. Thanks for being with us. So AI UGC sounds amazing, right? You get some incredible ads. They produce great results. It's quick. It's easy, probably even inexpensive. But how good are they? Is this real? To answer that question, we're chatting with the CEO of Poolday AI. He's also the founder of a mobile app publishing studio, formerly an executive at Addictive. His name is Alexei Chemenda. Welcome, Alexei.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, John.
Awesome. I just realized I pronounced your first name kind of Russian, but you're French. So I said Alexei, but is it Alexei?
I go by Alexei. I go by Alex in the US to make it even easier.
Okay, excellent.
You're not the first.
Thank you. That's a little bit of backstory I just got on Alex. He's actually French, but doesn't sound it at all because he spent a long time in the US. So that's very cool. You're in Silicon Valley right now. I want to start a little bit about you, honestly, because I said it in the intro, right? You've spent some time high level with Addictive. You've got your own mobile app publishing studio. You've built some apps and other tools on your own, just side jobs and fun stuff that you're playing with. And of course, you've built this company, which is an AI platform for marketers. You're kind of doing everything from every possible angle in mobile.
That's one way to put it. I love to think of myself as someone curious, and I think it's great to have all these angles under my belt. And certainly it's helping us build Poolday the right way because I'm on the publishing side, I'm on the app side. So I understand what we go through from the app side. The Addictive times are very interesting as well, very exciting. And we see kind of what happens for customers that end up scaling, and then you have a churn problem and you want to make sure you retarget those users. So definitely you feel very lucky to have been on all sides of the table, and it's certainly helping us shape Poolday the right way.
I personally believe that curiosity is a superpower. Superpower is a big deal. I honestly almost believe that because people who are curious, they learn so much, right? They get into oh, that's interesting. Try it out, check it out. And it's amazing what cross-pollination does there. So almost every smart person that I've talked to and interviewed, they're curious, they're interested, they learn stuff. They want to take stuff apart, put it back together, maybe fail.
Sounds about right.
They learn stuff as they go. So that's awesome. Okay, let's get into our topic, generative AI for UGC. How good is it?
Well, if you compare it to where it was 2 years ago, it's absolutely insane. If you compare it to where the world wants it to be, it's probably 60% there, 70% there. So it's a great starting point. And with the proper setup, it's certainly delivering on results. And I think here what matters is how do we define if it's good or not good? And, if you look at my wife is probably the strictest evaluation member of this team. And whenever she looks at AI video we produce, she's instantly jumping to, the eye is just a little bit weird. And so there are details here and there. And so what's important to remember is where that medium is going to be displayed.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's short form content displayed on mobile for users that scroll through, then, maybe the details don't matter as much. And then it's a performance game for a lot of marketers. So from that perspective, it's certainly incredibly realistic. And most customers don't see the difference between, a video we show them and a video of a human.
This is the amazing thing about spouses, right? I mean, they can be our harshest critics. It's quite amazing. It's quite interesting. I will say most marketers that I talk to, when they look at creative and they say, is it good or is it bad? They don't look at it like something that's going to go up in an art museum. They look at it and say, how did it perform? Did it make me money? Did it generate ROAS? Did it work? Did it generate growth and installs and all that stuff? And that's pretty much what they care about.
Exactly. And this is where the definition of good is so important. If you define good with how does it perform, then all of a sudden you're not comparing a one-to-one video where you look at a human video and then you look at an AI video and you see how those perform, but you rather look at in a week, what can I do with humans and actors or content creators? In a week, what can I do with AI UGC? And is there one that will outperform the other from these groups? It's when you look at it from a holistic approach and you look at the group level comparison, then AI UGC is doing really great. It does take some setting up and, iteration to get right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the interesting thing. And we'll get into a lot of different things. We'll also get into as we were chatting and prepping for this, you said it works for some people. It doesn't work for other people. We'll get into what's the difference there and why it works when it works and why it doesn't work when it doesn't work. But I mean, that you hit on the key thing that comes to my mind. A lot of times finding a great creative, a unicorn creative, a 10x creative is a matter of getting a lot of at bats, right? You might be batting like 100. Okay, that's a baseball reference. You one out of every 10 at bats, you hit the ball, right? You get a ball in play. For those who aren't into sports or baseball, but
We
if
say
you hit
shots
enough
on goals
times,
in France.
you get enough at bats, you're going to get a hit, right?
That's exactly right. And it's just statistically speaking, yes. And this is what we've seen from customers who did not see success with AI UGC. We always ask them, because we want to learn as well. Like I said, I'm curious, but the team is also curious. So we want to learn, why didn't you see success? And so we're asking them what was their setup and so on. And oftentimes it includes, oh, well, we spent a lot of media budget on these 3 to 4 videos. And
Ouch.
turns out none of them performed. And
Ouch.
this is where sometimes half my brain wants to become the agency to be able to say, hey, like, let us try to at least run the tests and make sure we can surface the right thing. And it's not to say we would do it better. It's just that it's a different mindset. It's a different setup for tests.
Yeah.
And where we see a lot of success for customers is aggressive testing, and they produce and they produce and they produce and they iterate. And that's where we see magic happening. And it's not just one of them. It produces a lot of different winners, but it does take some time to get there to find the right messaging. But once you do, oh, wow, you can milk it forever. And I think one of the examples I love sharing is from my own studio. We built a creative in August 22. So it's been 2.5 years now. And that creative and its direct variations, meaning when we swap out the same creative, but we swap out the hook, or the same creative and we swap out the AI actor, that creative still remains the top spender for us. And we spend about $400,000 a month on UA.
I love it. I love it. I've talked to a lot of marketers. That's why I call them unicorn creatives, right? That 10x creative. Sometimes in your case, it's 100x creative. I mean, it's just, and some marketers get so annoyed because they can't beat that creative, right? And that's the game, right?
Yeah.
If anybody's new to Growth Masterminds, you're just tuning in today for this episode, go back an episode. I just published one from Lucas Santo, and he talked about testing creative, and he talked about being in the testing phase and being in the scaling phase. And he talked about scaling to 10K a week of spend. And you do very different things in those two phases. And in the early phase, what he talked about is, I want 30 to 40 creatives. I'm not going to get out of this learning phase, this initial phase, until I find one that massively outperforms the other. And so that would, solve your customers' problems that they tried 3 or 4 and didn't work. And they spent like 10K on them or whatever. And they're okay, it doesn't work for us. Right.
Exactly.
So anyways, that's a little ad for going back in time. Let's go back to where I said we were going to go, which is, you told me generative AI for UGC doesn't work for everyone. Who does it not work for?
Well, there's certainly no patterns we've seen across a specific vertical that doesn't see success. More so the type of testing. So it's again going back to the testing methodology. Across the board, whether we started with hyper casual for very obvious reasons. They were already aggressive with production and testing. But then we expanded to social gambling. We expanded to RPG. We expanded to match 3. Like a lot of these interactive apps, interactive stories. All of them are similar patterns that if you test enough, you will find one that works. Mm-hmm. And it sounds obvious in hindsight, but it's where that requires a bit of a shift is that you no longer need, or we see customers no longer needing to spend as much per creative on a media budget perspective to reach some sort of statistical significance, because the channel is now able to figure that out more than before. And so accepting that we're not going to get a meaningful amount of spend per creative, yet a winner will emerge. That's one interesting shift. And the other, for whom it works, and therefore customers for whom it doesn't work, is a shift between I have one creative that outperforms everything else to I like to talk about stream of creatives, where you have a stream of different or different streams of creatives. Each creative is a concept along with its variations. And maybe a concept will work well. I'll give you an example. My dad and I love to share this example as well. My dad and I drive the same car. Does it mean we will respond to the same ad? Probably not. And actually,
the same type of car or the same car? Different
actually,
times.
literally the same car.
Oh, wow.
And it's a car a lot of people drive. But the point is, we're not resonating to the same ad when we're seeing that ad for the car, and yet, we're both end users. So, and Miho from the Construction Fund actually just shared a great analogy with me this morning, and it was an ice cream analogy where, and I told him I would reuse it. So there you go. I love the analogy. Kids don't like the same flavor of ice cream, and so if you open up an ice cream shop, you don't want to have one vanilla ice cream, even if 60% of the audience likes ice cream. But you'll still have people with, chocolate or strawberry, whatever it is. And so you want to have those different options for different audiences. And so that's the shift we see. And when we see those two things, we know the customer will succeed. If we don't, we know it's a customer at risk.
Super interesting. Okay, let's turn a little bit our attention towards who it really works for. And you mentioned hyper casual jumped on this instantly. Of course, they need cheap stuff and they need lots of stuff and they need to churn a lot through a lot of stuff because their margins aren't massive, right? Who have you found, hey, it's right down the strike zone and it's really worked for them?
I mean, so hyper casual, yes. Match 3, yes. RPG, yes. Actually, e-commerce is a fantastic example of something kind of outside the box or outside of our typical, expectations.
Yes.
And essentially any company that has different kinds of footage. So gaming companies have a lot of different gameplays.
Yep.
And e-commerce have a lot of different footage, from whether it's unboxing or whether it's getting ready with me or whatever trends there are. And so whenever you have a lot of footage, that's where we see them seeing the most value from the platform. And in general, from AI UGC, because then the number of combinations they can produce is incredibly high, because they can take whatever footage they have. Say they have 50 videos, and then they have 50 different actors available, let's say, on their accounts. That alone is 2,500 potential videos if you just want to make all the combinations. And then add languages, when we maybe producing 3 different languages. If you're targeting US, Spanish is a very big language here. English and Spanish alone make 2 languages. That's already 5,000. And so you can go, and I'm not recommending to generate all of the variations.
Let's test 10,000 variations.
Some customers are brave enough to do it, and we love it. It's not the baseline that I would recommend to start with. But it certainly gives you a kind of a opportunity window. Say, okay, well, I can play with 10,000 videos. Now let me just, and this is where the human part comes in. Let me just narrow that down to a smaller set, because I want to make sure it's cohesive with my brain story, with my narrative style, and so on and so forth.
Very, very cool. Okay, let's dive in. What can you make? What are the range of possibilities here?
Do you mean in terms of specific
The
AI UGC?
AI-generated UGC? Like, what are the parameters here? So you talked about having some inputs, which might be some footage you have yourself, right? What are we talking something that, hey, there's gameplay going on, and then you have a UGC character pop up, and there's some UGC narrative going on? That's one possibility theoretically. What else is a possibility? What are the parameters for building out the UGC ads in your platform?
Yeah, I mean, a good way to think about this is generated pixels versus existing pixels. And so we always break down in the final video, do we have existing pixels from your existing gameplay or your existing product footage? And we want to make sure we use that, because you probably spend, as a marketer or a creative person, a lot of time building a great gameplay or building a great footage for e-commerce. So we want to use that, and that's existing pixels. And then we want to use generate pixels, so typically for the actor. And the combination is usually a mix of, exactly like you said, a gameplay, an actor. Well, a lot of the videos I see are actors starting full screen, and then it's focused on the gameplay, and then the actor full screen again. So that's kind of one parameter is existing pixels versus generated pixels. The second parameter is the actors. The third is the voice. The fourth is something our customers love is the situation. So the scene in which the actor appears. Are they walking on the streets, or are they in a car, or are they on a couch? Those are the most common situations that our customers use, and that's a parameter. And then if you play with enough customization, you can actually, you can even define the color of the hair of the person, and there's a lot of things you can do. But we always want to make sure that we keep it simple early on, and kind of go deeper as we grow with customers. But those are generally the inputs that are required.
Cool. And you talked about languages already. So you have obviously languages for localization in multiple different places.
Correct. So any sort of input from our customer on the platform when it comes to what the actor should say, or what the AI actor should say, or what the voice should say if it's a voiceover videos, that can be not just in English, but in 35 different languages. Which means, and soon enough, we'll release a specific localization module to make it even easier. But essentially, if you input a script in any language, you get the videos in that language and the captions in that language. So that makes it easy usually for companies that want to start with the market. And then once they find promising videos, they want to take that baseline and then transform the existing video into new videos for different aspect ratios, different languages, and so many other things that helps them create that stream of creatives that I was referring to earlier.
Cool. What are you learning about the results and effectiveness? Is it, just like any other creative? I mean, obviously we already talked about testing and optimization, finding the one that works and all that stuff. But when it works, what are you seeing in terms of results and effectiveness?
So there's a couple of data points that are super interesting here. So one is around creative fatigue, and the other is around absolute performance. So we can see customers squeezing out more performance from a given variation of creative because they're able to generate variations. So if you think about it, for content creators, if you want to A/B test something with a content creator, let's say a content creator sends you a video, or an actor sends you a video, and you deploy that, you like it, and you just want to tweak something where the actor says something different in the middle. Call them back, ask them to reshoot the video. All of a sudden they're wearing a different shirt, and all of a sudden their energy is different, right? So your A/B test is all over the place, and it's not A/B test anymore. It's just a joke. And so kind of the variance in performance you get from being able to really isolating the variables and testing drives meaningful performance. And so we see, best example I have is recently we measured with a company called Tapation, a gaming company in France or Europe. We measured the delta, and we did it as well for our studio, but we wanted to confirm with other companies as well. We measured the delta in performance between a batch of creatives that's been produced, where the only element was changed in the videos was the hook. And we measured what is the lowest ROAS, what is the highest ROAS in that group. And the average between the different studios we measured at was between 7 and 9x between the worst and the best. It doesn't mean your average ROAS on your campaign will 9x because it's the delta between the worst and the best. But it shows how that just one tiny component, the hook, it's literally a 1.5 second sentence, can change drastically the output of your video. And if you combine that, the top variables, the hook, the actor, the gameplay, or the product being shown, and then the editing style or the music, depending on what you're going for, those variables truly compound. And if you get your hooks right and you get your actors right and so on, you get a significant lift in performance. So that's kind of one big data point. And the other I mentioned is creative fatigue. And the benefit is that if you start hitting creative fatigue, which, like I said, with our ad produced in August 22, we did hit creative fatigue with the ad, right? So what do? We swapped out the actor, with 10 new actors, and we got another actor who took the place of the top performing one. And we had three other actors who were a little bit lower, but we were still distributing them because there were different audiences. And so all of a sudden, that one creative that was our top winner ended up being disabled, and the replaced creative, the creatives we replaced with ended up being top performers. So that's kind of, it allows you to extend the life expectancy of your creative. And that's pretty valuable when you find the unicorn creative, like you said. It's a life-changing, event for the business.
It really is. It also, what you said initially about the different variations brings to mind how much more complex testing and optimization is becoming, in part due to this level of generative AI that you have available, because the number of variations you could create in the past scalably was low. It was not you couldn't do that much for the reasons that you talked about, and just cost and time and energy and all that stuff. But now when you can change the shirt color or the hair color or the race or the sex or the whatever of anything that's in your ad, change the hook at front and on the end, change the intro at the front or the gameplay in the middle or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally have probably millions of variations based on that. And so you've got your field of what is testable is way open. And of course you've got to start small, and you can't test a million things instantly. It really makes me wonder where this will end up. And I'm sure that something along these lines will be built into the major platforms like the Metas and the Googles and everything like that. We'll get to at some point the
Certainly.
ads for an audience of one at some point, right? Where this ad is generated instantaneously for that advertiser and this audience member, this set of eyeballs, and I will see an ad that's different than your ad, and maybe it'll perform better. Who knows?
Yeah. And that's really one thing we're excited about, is that ultra level of ultra personalization, I would say, at scale. And I like the fact that you said, it's almost a one-to-one relationship between the creative and the end user. So we are getting into that direction for videos. Certainly, there's a lot of different possibilities with variations. It's a death trap if you think about the number of possibilities. And so that's why we took the time to measure. Even when we built the platform, we took time to measure, like, what do we want to help marketers generate variations of? And you can generate potentially variations on anything, but really what matters truly. And so that's why the actor, the hook, that's why we did all those measurements, to figure out the hook, the actor, the music, the editing style, the gameplay. Those are items that move the needle heavily. And then you can if you start playing with the color of the hair, if that's a variable, then really anything is a variable. And I'm not saying it doesn't have any impact. Like, we've had customers who asked us to have a really flashy set of hair,
Yeah.
purple hair, flashy on TikTok, worked great. But because they already had figured out everything else, and then it was about tweaking and continuing to tweak. But
Sure.
I would say, first, I would recommend just simple scales, fancy fails. So start simple. Here are the 5 variables that matter. I'm going to play with them. I'm going to see how I can squeeze out performance. Once I get to a good spot, so that's more of a brute force, I would say, approach. Once I get to a good spot, then I can start tweaking, and I can measure what additional variables matter. And that's on a title by title basis or an app by app basis.
Can you mention one more time those sort of, you listed them, but it was really quick, those kind of 5 variables that matter?
So it's hook. So the hook, the actor. The hook is the first few seconds of the video, the actor on screen, the gameplay, the editing style, and the music.
The music.
So those are the 5 variables that matter. And then again, so we talked about call to action, but the call to action matters a little bit less because it's at the end of the video. And by that time, users will most likely have exited out of the video.
Right.
And so then you can start playing with different variables that are very specific. But if you start with those 5, you certainly increase your chances of focusing on what matters and not spending your time in an endless data structuring issue.
Awesome. That's great. This is very, very cool. I do want to ask as well about tagging, ethics requirements. Do you have to tag this as AI generated somewhere?
So to be fair, it's not clear from the platforms themselves, because they have adopted an approach that is blanket, a little bit too broad. And the short answer is we see a lot of our customers not tagging it as AI, but we can't be the guarantor of that method.
Yeah.
What we do know is that a lot of content is tagged as AI, even if there's a human being in there who's actually doing things and there's AI assisted creation.
Right.
And so maybe
Right.
some of the pixels are generated with AI, but the bulk of it is human and they still tag it as AI. And so I would say
Gotcha.
that's not specific for AI UGC, more so specific to the tolerance, the risk tolerance of the customer and
hmm
what the requirements are from the channel. And
Cool.
that's where it's a bit of a blurry world right now. So most of our customers do not tag it as AI.
hmm
Some do. And those that do, they even tag a content creator video with the AI tag if there's like an image generated with AI that appears
hmm
in the video. And
hmm
the guidelines here
hmm
from the major platforms are not clear. So we certainly are working with them to make sure that it is clear for everyone.
I'm sure that'll get sorted out as this just becomes more and more prevalent. And as the platforms themselves, which are already mixing and matching bits and pieces of ads and creative and text and all that stuff, as they delve more into this also.
Correct.
Cool.
And one,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing that does help on that front is that there's two different ways to generate actors, but there's one way to generate actor is raw pixel generation, meaning start from scratch and then you generate out of thin air an actor.
hmm
What we do is we work with real people and we turn them into actors. And so we
Interesting.
have contracts with them to make sure we can use their likeness and we
Yeah.
transfer those rights to our customers so they can use them for commercial purposes. And
Wow.
so all of a sudden, it's less, AI kind of generated from scratch. It's 100% guaranteed that they have the commercial rights to use the videos.
Yeah.
So on that front, it's certainly, a meaningful step forward for
Yeah.
these customers. But at the end of the day, it's up to the customer to decide what I would do with tags on different channels.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool. Maybe we'll end here. What are a couple key tips for marketers who are looking at UGC, whether it's AI generated or not? What do most marketers forget when it comes to UGC?
You just see it's hard. It's, you know, clients don't realize that it's not a magic wand and it's not a simple press a button, get great UGC videos. They perform, they scale, and you can go celebrate. So UGC is hard. It's very valuable, but it's only a portion of the equation. And
hmm
I was telling you earlier, we started with AI UGC and then we added AI voiceover and then we added aspect ratio generation for multiple aspect ratio outputs at once and localization. So there's a lot of different things that we're focused on because we see that AI UGC or UGC in general, by the way, is hard. And sometimes you just don't have the time as a marketer to wait it out if it takes 3 months. So I think that's kind of an important component that people tend to put aside and to think of a UGC video as a potential silver bullet or magic wand. So that's one thing. And the other is just to remember that it's not because there's a human in the video that the messaging should be um, completely ignored.
hmm
And a lot of the times, we look at what videos our customers generate, and we see they just took a very simple video they made, they slapped an actor on top of it, and then they call it a day. And it's a great way to do an A/B test, right? If you just want to see same exact video, bring an actor, not bring an actor, and see what the difference is. But really, what it will tell you is, well, maybe the actor is not working out if they're saying very random or not necessarily on point things. So you have to remember, for the end viewer, you still have to create a storytelling that's appealing. You have to craft a narrative that makes sense and that's
hmm
exciting or generating some form of emotion. And that's something that's usually what we see for first time creators for UGC that they put aside and then only start opening up that topic after a few months when they don't find the performance they wanted.
Super interesting. And I like the comment that UGC is hard because let's face it, advertising is hard. Mobile advertising is hard. Mobile apps are hard, right? We're all looking for the silver wand. We're all a silver bullet. We're all looking for the magic wand, right? And yeah, I mean, things work and tools are good, but it is hard work at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Alex. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I appreciated the chat.